Hello and welcome to today's tutorial. My name is Wendy and on Technicals we've got Alicia today. So today we're going to be making the folded boxy bag. We've done it in Halloween fabrics this time. There will be a kit available. Okay, so the fabrics we're going to be demonstrating are these two fabrics. These are the new ranges in. And that's the second fabric that you can see there. They're really nice to use with actually. So let's get started and see how we make the Halloween boxy bag. Okay, so first of all what we need to do is we need to cut our fabrics. So you need 2 fat quarters, press them right sides together. Then what you need to do is lay them onto your wadding. So we've got the layer of wadding. The next piece of fabric will be facing up with the top fabric facing down, so right sides together. I would choose to actually put some 505 spray onto the wadding and actually just adhere that all together, just to hold it in place nicely. And then cut the 3 layers together into an 18-inch square. That way we know everything's going to fit and it just snuggles together and it makes it much easier to sew. Okay, so what we need to do then is actually just pin it and make sure that everything is anchored together properly. So you can see that what I've done, I've just used 1 colour pins all the way round, and I'm pinning out towards the edge. We don't want to pin sideways because what can happen, it can just shift one of the layers of fabric or the wadding. So I'm just pinning out. I've actually used pins with a different colour head. So the only reason I've done this is because when you start sewing all the way round, you may actually get carried away and sew the opening up. So what I need to do is start sewing from here, and I'm just using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'll sew all the way to the end and then all the way around, still with your 1/4 inch seam, all the way and back to this pin. So what we need to do, we need to leave a gap here approximately 3 to 4 inches, and this will be for turning through. So once you've stitched all the way round, what I would suggest you do is just trim the corners off to eliminate any bulk and then turn everything through. So I've already got one prepared. I'll just set that to one side. And here we've got one that I've actually just stitched all the way through and turned. Give it a good press, and when you press it, make sure that you're getting the edges of the fabric together. We don't want one rolled over so you can see it on the opposite side, okay? So just give it a nice press so it's nice and flat. All we need to do then is actually close up the opening that we actually turned everything through. Now you can close it whichever way you choose to. You can slip stitch it. I personally prefer to ladder stitch. So I'm just going to show you the technique for ladder stitching. So I've already started it so that you don't have to watch me do all of it. So I'm hoping that you can see this here. So I'm taking the needle and I'm putting it into the fabric where the fold is here. And I'm going to pass it through the fold of the fabric like so. Okay, then pull my needle through. I won't pull it too tight because I want to try and demonstrate what the ladder is. Then directly opposite where I've come out on the blue fabric, I'm going to go into the grey fabric on the opposite side. And once again, I'm in the fold of the fabric. So I'm just going to pass the needle through and pull again. And what you see, you will start to see what would look like the runs on a ladder. Now, normally you would just pull these straight through so they're flat. I'm trying to demonstrate so you can actually see the runs here. Okay? And all we need to do, I'm going to pull those closed now, and I'm just going to keep going to the end till I've actually closed this up. Here we go. This is a technique that I actually use for actually sewing the backs of my bindings. I find that it sits really, really flat. And even if I was to be using black thread using this, it would not show. It's very, very good. And it's very, very strong as well. Okay, so here we go. I've actually closed that up now, like so. Just do a couple of little stitches there, just to finish that off. And it's all done. I'm just going to give it a little tug so that when I release it, those tails will be absorbed back into the fabric and you won't see anything. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to actually quilt the piece of work. And the reason we quilt it is because, okay, this is a bag and it probably won't be laundered. But if this is a quilt, it would be laundered. And what you need to do when you quilt, you need to have the areas quilted to anchor everything together, right? And you shouldn't leave anything larger than fist size. And that's pretty much a rule of thumb, okay? If we leave spaces that are not quilted in bigger areas than this, particularly on a quilt, when it's laundered, what would happen would be the wadding would break down and it would go all lumpy and tear, and you just have fabric to fabric. By quilting it all together actually lengthens the life of a wall hanging, a quilt, a cushion, whatever. So the quilting is actually to anchor it all together and make sure there's no movement from the wadding. So what we need to do now is actually just to quilt this. Now I'm going to do it very, very quickly. You don't need to be able to free machine. I have got one here that I have free machined, and that is done with the feed dogs down. So this is just a very open vermicelli. Some people call it meander, some people call it spaghetti. And that's done with the feed dogs down, where you just move the fabric around. I'll just flip it over so that Alicia can catch it on the other side. I have actually used a different colour thread in the bobbin to what I did on the top. And that works beautifully as long as you've got your tension set correctly on your sewing machine. So that is just a free machined one. You can cross hatch these, you can do decorative stitches, you can do whatever you want to. What I prefer to do is actually to stitch all the way around the edge using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to very, very quickly do that, and then I'll show you a very quick way of quilting it if you don't want to do it with any bars to measure your lines or to draw on it. Okay, so let's get over to the sewing machine. And here we go. Right, so all I've got on, I haven't even got that down. So the machine I'm using today is a 770. And this actually, I don't need to put a walking foot on. You don't have to use a walking foot, but this one's got what you call a dual feet, so it just virtually turns it into a walking foot. So all I'm going to do, I'm just got a straight stitch on, and I'm just literally, I'm going to take that off actually. I'm going to, no I'm not, because it's decided it doesn't want to do that. There we go. Because I'd been testing it with something else earlier and playing. Here we go. This is what sort of thing happens when you're doing everything right. Just pull that through. And take that back out. There we go. That's my piece of fabric. There we go. Okay. So let's get that started again. And maybe it will behave itself nicely for me now. There we go. So I'm just going to very quickly sew all the way around it. So I've got an actual straight line to work from. These bags are actually really good fun to make. So myself and all my children use these for trick-or-treating, which is why we've done the new Halloween fabrics. They're also brilliant for using by the side of your sewing machine to keep your threads in, or your haberdashery. My youngest daughter has these on her dressing table, where she'll keep her makeup brushes in the pockets and cotton wool balls and various bits and bobs for her makeup. So they're really good. They're good for crafters. You can use them for lots and lots of different things. Here we go, final side, all the way down. So the fabric for this one that I'm using today is from the Liberty collection, and the blue on the reverse is from the Wiltshire collection, which is also Liberty. There we go, I'll just trim that tail off. Okay, so I've just stitched all the way around. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to quilt this, but I'm not going to drop the feed dogs. I'm not going to free machine, and I'm not going to use a ruler. I'm just going to do a random stitch across it, okay, to make sure everything's anchored together. So all I'm going to do to start with, I'm just going to place the needle down on one of the stitched lines, okay, and all I'm going to do is put my foot down, and I'm just literally going to roll the fabric from side to side, and you can go in any direction you want to. And all this is doing is just anchoring everything together. And if you keep going, doing it this way, you don't have all the ends to sew in. Some people's machines won't sew the ends in for them. So this actually will eliminate everything. So I'm just going to sew towards one of the sewn lines. Just making sure I'm not getting any pleats in it. And then I'm just going to, whoops, flip round. And you can go in any direction you want to. And I would just keep going using this until I've got all the areas covered and not got any spaces bigger than my fist. Okay, so I won't keep going. I can actually finish this later. I've got another one that I can actually demonstrate to show you how we do the folding to make the pockets. So as you can see, already we're starting to get the quilting going on here. And I would just come from point to point and then crisscross it to make sure that all of these points are covered, and then just give it a nice press. Okay, right, so this is the one that I've actually got prepared ready for today. And what we need to do is to decide whether we want the blue on the inside of the bag or on the outside of the bag. So I think today we'll have the blue on the inside. So all we need to do now is take the square that's already now been quilted and fold it in half. Okay, so all then I need to do then is take my ruler. Now you can adjust the size you want to do. Once you've done one of these, you can determine whether you want it to be wider or taller, whichever way you want it around. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to place my ruler. I've got the folded edge just here. I'm going to place my ruler and I'm going to measure 3.5 inches up from the fold. Okay, so I'm going to put the 3.5 inch marker on my fold here, and I'm just going to pop a pin here. Okay, Then I'm going to take another pin and I'm going to lay it along the folded edge, and I'm going to put the 4-inch marker on the edge of the fabric, and I'm just going to put a pin in here. Now when I do it, I generally just put it in the top, and then I can adjust it just to make sure that I'm actually pinning through the 2 layers and making sure that edge is actually together and not one sticking out at all, like so. Okay. Now, normally I would use a chalk marker, but actually I've got a pencil because I'm using grey, and actually this actually works fine. So I'm going to draw a line from the edge of my fabric where I've got the pin from the bottom to the edge of the fabric where I've got this one, and I'm just going to draw across like so. Okay, so here is my line, and all I need to do now is stitch from one edge to the other. Okay, I'll do that, and then I'll go through it again on this side just to confirm what I'm actually doing. So I'm going to take this to the sewing machine and pop it in. So I'm just lowering the needle into my drawn line. And I actually like to, instead of putting it right on the edge, if I set it in about 1/4 of an inch and do a couple of stitches forward, then go on the reverse button, nice and slowly go backwards, and that makes sure that I've caught everything in. I'm now just going to sew straight the way up that drawn line until I get to this edge, and I'm just making sure that they're both nice and even, nothing sticking out in any way. I'm going to approach it slowly, and just before I get to the edge, I'll do one more stitch, and then I'm just going to reverse and then come forward. And then I'm just going to release that and take it out. Now, if you've got the machine that sews the ends in, you can do it that way, but I'm trying to cover it so that this can be accommodated by anybody's machine. Okay, so this is the effect that we've got so far, all right? So I'll just trim this little tail off here. And now I'm going to do the same on the opposite side. So still, it's folded. I'm going to once again take my ruler, and I'm going to put my 3.5 inch marker on the folded edge of the fabric and pop a pin just in that top edge there. At the bottom, I'm going to do it for the 4 inch, which is there. No, that's not. That's one of these funny rulers that I've turned the wrong way round. I thought it looked a bit long. There we go. There. And once again, now I've removed the ruler, I'm actually going to make sure these edges are nice and level. The top's nice and level, the edges are nice and level. So I'll just pop that through and anchor that together, like so. And then basically join the dots. Okay, there we go. Straight the way across there, like that. These make up really, really quickly. You can actually, and the fact that, you know, it's only a couple of fat quarters, they make lovely gifts. There we go. Straight the way up to the edge. Okay, so already now we have actually formed 2 pockets. What we need to do now is make the other 2 pockets. So if you now lift the top layer up and join this corner to this corner, just fold it like so, okay? Lay it down and you will have this corner sticking up, okay? And all we need to do now is do exactly the same that we've just done on the other two. And so we're going 3.5 this way, 3.5 there, 4 along the bottom edge, there. Make sure that this edge is sitting nicely, and that's all good. Take my ruler, pencil, draw a line, pin to pin. Here we go again. We're almost there. This bag is almost finished. Okay, so I've just inset it. I'm not right on the edge, I'm going forward. Now I'm reversing backwards. And sew straight the way up. Just making sure that's all sitting nicely. We're completely aligned. Not a problem. Okay. We now have 3 pockets. And now it's time to make the 4th pocket. So for the 4th and final time, 3.5 inches on the side here, 4 inches on the base. Join the pins together, like so. Straight back to the machine. And put down, and here we go. Okay. So now you can see the bag starting to form. Okay, so what I'm going to do, instead of stitching by hand now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pin it so you can see how everything forms and you get the shaping of the bag. So the next thing to do will be to actually press this down like so, and this is what forms your little pockets. Now you have different ways of doing this. What you can do if you want to, you could actually stitch across this with a machine. I personally like to actually just anchor it here. Now if you anchor it right on the corners, the pocket doesn't actually stick out very much. If you anchor it about 1/2 inch away from the sewn seam, the pouch is much more much larger for you to actually store things in. So I'm just going to actually pop a couple of pins in so that you can actually see the difference. If I do this one, I'm going to put the pin so you can actually see it and see the difference of the shaping it makes for it. So I'm just popping those pins about 1/2 inch away from the seam, and I'd actually tack it from the, put a little stitch from the back. And as you can see, you've got quite a decent sized pocket that you can put things in. So the next one, what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to pin it right on the edge so you can see what happens if it flattens it completely. So literally just take the pocket and press it in, and it automatically goes straight back. Now, if I actually stitched it right on the edge here, and right on the edge here, you can see it's so much flatter. And you see, I'm hoping you can see how this one stands really proud and this one is so much flatter. Okay, so that's what you do with all the 4 pockets. The next thing to do would be to actually decide whether you want all of these stitched down or whether you actually want to put a handle on it. So what I'm going to do next, I'm actually going to pin these down and show you the difference of the look. Okay, so there we go. Right, so what we do now is just take the point and actually just roll that back down. Now, you don't have to use buttons. You can just use stitches if you want to. I actually like to put a decorative button here. So I'm actually going to do a coloured pin so you can see where the button would be. So if I just pop a pin in here on that side, and I would immediately go to the opposite side just to pin that straight down there. Okay, I'll pop a pin in here just so that you can see this will be sitting down. Pop a pin in there, it will give the effect of what it looks like. Unfortunately, I don't have time to do all the hand sewing on these tutorials, so you can see it also hand stitched down as well. So if I put that one down to match the one on the opposite side, so you can have it like this, okay, which means you've got these 2 sides out, and these 2 you can actually place a handle on. Okay, so if you put the handle on, this is what it would look like. Okay, so if I just twist that round, I'm hoping you can see that. Right, if you don't want the handle on, all you need to do is fold the other ones down and then either sew or add a button to it. Like so. In. And you have got your boxy bag. So like I say, there's different ways of doing it. You can do it so these stand proud. So you can put your threads in, scissors in, makeup in, whatever. Or you can actually do it so it's much flatter like this. Okay, so it doesn't stand quite as proud. But if you do it this way and put things in, at least they don't rock over or anything like that. So that is how you make the boxy bag. Like I say, we've actually got kits made up. We've called this the Halloween boxy bag, using the new Halloween fabric from this year's collection. So I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial. Hope it inspires you. They make lovely Christmas presents. Thank you for watching, and hope to see you again soon. Thank you for now. Bye-bye.